One phrase I hear a lot in Christian spaces is this: the worst thing that could happen is for a church to close its doors. I get the heart behind that. Churches aren't just buildings. They are sacred gathering spaces that hold memories like baptisms, weddings, funerals, friendships, faith milestones. When a church closes, it can feel like a light going out in a dark world. That grief is real. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes churches need to close. Let's talk about why. Hey everyone, I'm Colin, the resident nerd and Bible scholar here at the Bible Uncut and Unfiltered. I know what I just said is very controversial and probably has some of you mad already, but hear me out. I grew up in the IFB world, Independent Fundamental Baptist, and it was really insular. We did not have denominational safety nets. There was no higher level support. Most churches survived solely on the sacrificial giving of their members. And here's the reality most people in the pews don't see. There are a lot of churches in America right now, honestly more than you would think, running with 5 to 20 people max, living week to week, barely keeping the lights on. They're not struggling because the gospel failed. They're struggling because the people are aging. The youth have been alienated, and leadership often refuses to bring in anyone younger than 40, if not 60 or 70. Some of these churches didn't just start dying recently. Honestly, they died a long time ago, and they've just been coasting along on nostalgia and survival instincts rather than mission. And instead of merging with other good churches, pooling resources, or reimagining what community could look like, pride gets in the way. We do it the right way. This church has always been here. This is how we've always done it. But let's shift that with a metaphor. Growing up, I used to go to Hershey Park all the time. It's in central PA. And there were these paddle boats that I used to love riding with my dad. Eventually, they shut that attraction down, and I was kind of sad about it. Meanwhile, my dad would tell me about how long before my time, there actually used to be a little racetrack there instead of the paddle boats. And the last time I went there, the whole entrance to the park was completely different. Old rides were gone. New ones were everywhere. And you know what? I didn't love it because it messed with my nostalgia. But here's the crazy thing. In my late 20s, I ain't the target audience for Hershey Park. It's not about me. And one day, I'll be gone, and they'll continue to change the park even more. They have to. Because if an amusement park like Hershey existed only to preserve my childhood memories, it would fail at its actual purpose. And the church has always understood this reality for itself. Adapt or die. Yet fundamentalism often demands an unbending allegiance to an idealized past that is just colored by nostalgia. The truth is, it was never as good as we remember it. Community requires giving up preferences for the sake of people. And it's okay to mourn what was, especially if it shaped your life. That grief is valid. But life does go on, with or without us. And sometimes something that was good for a season no longer is. Right now, so many churches are wasting time, energy, and resources trying to keep these tiny little isolated islands afloat when they could be coming together, sharing leadership, sharing space, sharing mission, and actually doing more good. Even scripture shows us this pattern. Eventually, God allowed the temple system in Israel to shut down because the institution had become corrupt and harmful. Keeping it running to preserve a name or presence wasn't faithfulness, it was actually disrespectful to God. And out of that disruption came synagogues. Out of that came new forms of community, and eventually the church. So that's not to say that the old was bad or new is always better, but change is necessary. And yes, it absolutely does hurt, but a life without change is a life without growth, and that's called death. That's stagnant. The cruel irony is that in the attempt to keep the past on life support, we killed the present. Closing something isn't always failure. Sometimes it's pruning. Sometimes it's mercy. Sometimes it's the only way something new can grow. Or as Jesus himself said, sometimes a grain of wheat has to fall and die for the plant to grow. See, the church doesn't exist to preserve buildings, brands, or nostalgia. It exists to embody love, justice, community, and hope. And sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is let go of what was so we're not blind to a better way forward.